Hey everyone, good evening. It is Wednesday, the 27th of October. We're finishing out another month, and this is episode 52 of Cocktails and Pajamas, which means we have done a full rotation around the sun with this podcast. I'm Heidi Ferguson, and next to me is Fidesta Ramsey, my podcast partner, and here we are this evening. With a little bit more chilly weather on the East Coast, at least here in Philly, and I think probably in where you are in New York. Yeah, so I'm just and it's not completely dark yet, but the sun is slowly going down. It's probably a lot further than I think it is, and yeah, so I'm feeling a lot more into fall than I was even a week or two ago, and appreciating this earlier time that we have created to do this. It works. It's really working for me, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah. So do you have everything you need? Okay. Okay. All right. So all right, so we're like I've already started. I'm like, let's just start, but I've already started, right? So
Yeah.
so Podesta and I almost every week between podcasts, we do a check-in. We just kind of come together and talk about our lives and things that we might be struggling with or whatever. And we just didn't have a moment to do that this week. And so we were like, okay, so let's meet at 6 and check in then. And then we're like maybe 3 or 4 minutes on the call, and Fidesta says, "You just want to check in on the podcast?" I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's bring it. So yeah, do you wanna start, my friend? Great.
Yeah, thank you. All that tech. Thank you for starting us so I could do the tech. Um, yeah, I think it's really even just the reason for us not meeting today earlier. I woke up this morning in some overwhelm. Have I'm multi-passion, so I have many things I love doing and many projects that I'm nurturing. And with that comes I choose to live optimally, right? I meditate, I eat well, I make sure that I get good sleep because I like holding a lot. I enjoy holding a lot, but I have to be operating at optimal levels, right? Which in normal times I can curate, frankly. I can go into that mode. But in the last 2.5 months, right, roughly since Afghanistan collapsed to the Taliban, I needed a lot more time to grieve. And, there were times I was in a bit of a paralysis over the news that was coming through. Um, Times I didn't have mental capacity for the work in front of me, that kind of exhaustion and grief, right? And all this to say, I'm backlogged, right? From prioritizing activism, no regrets, taking in more sleep, taking time to cry, taking time to take a walk with a friend instead of just working. Like those were all really healthy impulses. So like I took care of myself. And now there is, at least for some anxious part of my mind, this like I'm backlogged thing. And it's basically because I've been under functioning on some levels, right? Because other things took priority. And it was emotional labor, right? It was like a real emotional toll on my body that I couldn't just bypass to do like 20 more hours of work sometimes. I couldn't push it. And I'm glad I didn't. But on the other end of that now is just going, how do I get everything done I said yes to? And today was an exercise for me in risking with you of being like, I'm anxious, I'm overwhelmed. Is it okay if we don't meet earlier? I could really use that time. That was probably the biggest sort of, call it like an act of faith a little bit, to actually be real with you and ask for something that would help me but might impact you. So like it was an interesting place. And then I've just moved through the day holding that anxiousness and doing the best I can to prioritize what needs tending to. Like, okay, a lot of stuff needs tending to. Like, what can I do from where I'm at now? Which still isn't, what it was 3 months ago. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know I went in circles a little, but I'm hoping it makes sense. Like, I'm trying to function with this big historical, thing going on.
Yeah.
And I think I'm doing pretty well, but a lot of balls are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that with humility and some, comic relief. Like, it's like, okay, you guys, this is what happens. It's okay. But it's the being really honest with people. Like, hey, I need to drop this ball.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, so yeah, that to me feels like the biggest element I'm kind of trying to grow in, is let some things drop. Because there's a part of me that's really driven to have them all, like, right. And this is a exercise in humility for me, to be like, yep, nope, I would love to do that thing you're offering me, and I don't think I can, like, right now. Boundaries. That's my check-in.
Mm. So I'm just gonna take all that in and take it in with a real deep sense of appreciation
Mm.
and um, and honoring you as you were honoring yourself and modeling that. Um, and yes, taking the risk, but also trusting. So as you risked,
Yeah.
can we meet later? Can we to do our check-in at 6? Risking that to me was a trust in yourself and us and our relationship that
Mm-hmm.
it would be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
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 I absolutely trusted that this was a safe space to
Yeah.
be vulnerable and
Yeah.
honest. And I don't like people knowing I'm overwhelmed or anxious, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
a level of what I've cultivated that's really joyful and
Sure.
relaxed and, like, enthusiastic about life. And I'm really owning this part of me that's like, oh, and, like, the world seems fraught, and I feel sensitive to that. And that's okay too. Yeah. I'm like, I'm accepting myself. And then I feel like I'm showing that more because I trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's really good. Thank you.
yeah. So thank you for modeling that and for asking for what you needed,
Mhm.
um, and trusting me. Yeah. Absolutely. And boundaries are one of those. I almost am gonna. There's a part of me that's like, but they're not. So I almost use the word crunchy or
Mhm.
uh, can really challenge us. Like boundary, like when we have boundaries and we hold our own boundaries, and we're challenged by them, right? And so, and what I do know about boundaries is that if I have a, I'm going to use myself as an example. If I have a boundary and I don't, and it's my boundary, but I don't hold it in place,
Mm.
and and the other person or the other party or the other people cross that boundary, that is me. That's my, I have to own that.
Yeah.
And and if I allow the boundary to be broken, I'm going to have resentment. And
Mm.
my resentment is because I have allowed someone or some ones to cross that boundary. And what's fascinating to me, like it's one thing for me to recognize it myself, but then when I see it happening in other people, I'm like, I'm just kind of, and I see it on a scale, if you will,
Mm.
and how it affects relationships. Yeah, yeah. So appreciating that at a very deep level. Yeah. So my check-in. Wow. Okay. So um as you know, Miss Lindsay has been working on this big project for the last several weeks, and so she and I haven't met one-on-one in since then. Since I guess she started it sometime at the beginning of September. Anyway, and so and the reason I'm mentioning that is because at that time I was maybe I think I was maybe a week and a half into my ease into my elimination. And one of the things that came up during an Akashic reading when she was doing she was doing an Akashic reading for me, was to not do the elimination. And it's so fascinating. And I'm just like, huh. And I remember hearing her, I remember that coming through in the reading, and I'm like, wow, okay. So why? But I didn't ask that question. I could have, but I just didn't think to ask why, because I was kind of in this place where, like, I just didn't want to, I didn't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe that I wasn't supposed to do it. And interestingly enough, it didn't work. The elimination just didn't work for me the way that I was hoping it would, the way that I was hoping it would, the way that I think my practitioner probably had some expectations. And so anyway, I was speaking to my basil dealer.
Love
I
it.
call, I call him my basil dealer. He's a dear friend of mine who's an Ayurvedic doctor, and but he supplies me with basil all summer long, which is really lovely. So anyway, um, so I saw him, and we spoke about this because he was doing an even more intense cleanse around the same time that I was. And so I felt like and it wasn't, he doesn't it's interesting the way that he educates. He doesn't preach. He just kind of is very like, this is the way it is. Very kind of nonchalant, like very straightforward, like, and this, you might want to think about this. Because he knew from the very beginning where I was in my process and how I was doing, and he would check in with me and all that kind of stuff. And so he gave me some really important things to think about, especially as I go into another consult with my practitioner. Some things to talk about, some things that we need to tweak, clearly need to tweak, because what I've done isn't working. But what I will say is that, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to say it again. I will say for me, the mental shift has been the most important and most obvious thing that I have noticed about the change, for sure. Um, I'm just reading a lot more labels. I'm a lot more conscious. Um, and I want to say that I feel like I feel clear. Mentally, I feel clearer. And after, I mean, I was having like a cocktail a night. Cocktails, sometimes 2 cocktails. And that's not beer, that's not wine, it's like a cocktail, right? And so all through the cleanse, I think I cheated one time, I had 1 cocktail. And then since I finished, I've had 1 or 2. And I'm like, wow, it's interesting how just the habit of it has been a game changer for me. Yeah. I think that's kind of where I mean, yeah, I mean, there's more going on, and I'm sure it'll come up in the conversation. But the one thing that I did want to say is that um, last week when we did episode 51, it wasn't recorded by accident. It wasn't recorded, and what we talked about, and we're not going to talk about it again. I mean, you can go on Facebook if you're on Facebook and see it. But we did address the week before, which was where we were talking about COVID and the vaccination, and we had a guest on, and there was some backlash. We did get some comments and whatnot, and so we addressed that last week. And um, and it wasn't until maybe I think it was after the episode was over, and you had said to me, "Oh my gosh, I don't think it's been recorded." I'm like, okay. And then and it was interesting because I honestly didn't really, it didn't bother me. I was like, okay. And then a couple days in, I got a message that it's things like this are just meant to be. Like there are no coincidences. Things like the things will work themselves out however they're supposed to be. And that's why I messaged you. I'm just like, it's just, yeah, let's not sweat it. So anyway, we want our audience to know that we did do episode 51. You can find it on Facebook, on my page or her page. And this is episode 52. So anyway, there we are.
Thank you. I really want to appreciate you and acknowledge you for like being able to articulate what the cleanse gave you, right? In terms of maybe a different state of being with your food and with the labels and with everything. And there goes a siren. So I think you helped articulate what I've been feeling, which is like I didn't necessarily see the shift physically from doing the cleanse I was doing roughly around the same time. I think I might have been a week ahead or something. But I feel a huge shift in my energy, like having access to my like body in a way that feels really good. Yeah, so it's interesting. And then just really being like, yeah, I don't really need that if I haven't had that for 35 days. Yeah. Like I think I'm okay without dairy. Like it's fine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's interesting how quickly that shift can be, because I don't think a month's a very long time to break a habit. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. Appreciate that, because it helps me see like that was well worth the effort. Even though I had my eye maybe on a different goal.
Yeah.
It's probably like a better gift to get out of the cleanse, right? Sort of like clear-sighted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else? I'm curious. The idea of like there's so much that goes on in a week, right? And we haven't connected. What else is sort of stirring in your life right now that you want to share?
Oh, okay. So I think I mentioned, well, you and I, we did that thing yesterday. You did a round table. Fedas and Irene did a round table yesterday on intimacy, which was really lovely. In any event, so before that, I think my FaceTime call was at 10:30 to about 11:15. Is that right? Yeah, I think 11:30. Anyway, it was intense because I was working with my favorite organizer. So this woman, I've known her for probably 10 years. And I had worked with her on and off over the last 10 years, especially when I was in my former relationship. And since then, I have worked with her in this apartment. I've worked with her twice now. And the one time she actually came here and we did a lot of physical work because when she's so besides being an organizer, she also physically does the work with the person, with the client. That would be me. So anyway, so yesterday, there have just been some things that I've wanted to reorganize, or if I'm like, I don't have space for this. What do I do? And that kind of thing. And I've learned a lot from her, but there's some things that they're not in my wheelhouse. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to contact her. Right. So I contacted her and she's like, all right, let's meet on Tuesday morning. Great. And, and so as I have my iPad and she's on her phone and we're FaceTiming and I have my measuring tape. So I'm doing dimensions and I'm bending and going under my kitchen sink, I was like, oh my God. And my head, and my head was spinning just because I knew that at the end of our call, I would be inundated with links to different things she's like, this is where you can find this. Cause she's really good at it. So anyway, so at first, cause I think we were done, I don't know, about whatever, an hour before our call. But anyway, but I really hadn't sat down. I was moving the whole time, moving and moving and moving and feeling really kind of winded, just kind of like over my brain was full. And then I was just like, all right, I don't have to look these links right now. I don't have to. I can just sit and wait and, just kind of collect myself. And because I really wanted to be ready and present for the call, for the round table. So anyway, I've gone back and looked at some more links, and then there are other places on the web to look for different things and secondhand things and that kind of. So I've been doing that, so that's been fun, and also this is the time of year where I kind of regroup and because I have a birthday coming up in 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, a birthday in 2 weeks. Wow. And so this is the time of year that I take to just kind of regroup and reassess my life and just kind of feel into how I'm doing and if I am where I want to be, and if I'm not, how can I change that? Or and I would say for me the biggest let me silence this. The biggest part, the biggest thing for me is to not shame myself, because I don't do New Year's resolutions. I don't do, like in a year I want to be here. That I don't do. That's just never been my thing. So, but I am aware that like, okay, so I would like to be, when I think about my life right now, I'm like, well, I thought I would have done XYZ, right? Um, and I have to let go of that because there's nothing I can do to change what I haven't done. So yeah, so I find like my birthday, I'm excited to get older. I'm really loving my 50s going into my 60s. Oh my God, I'm closer to 60 than I am to 50, which is so weird. Wow. And, but I'm, glad to be alive. Glad to be alive, glad to be a woman, glad to have had the experiences I've had. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's been quite a week. It's been a good week.
Yeah, I'm feeling like the richness of that, just all those pieces coming together or coming apart, however it goes. And I love this piece around allowing for all of that to be alive, right? In a conversation, in a blog, in a moment, like just the piece I'm learning so much with you is like, how do you just let the moment breathe? Right? Something I remember when we did the well together, the wellness summit, that you had these pauses, right, that you would take during your workshop. And I was like, oh my gosh, that feels so like so anxiety provoking to me to have that much quiet. And yet it's so wonderful. Those moments that we can like, I don't know, tune into each other and not have to say it a lot sometimes. And I just mean that generally, right? People we care about, people I care about, I love that feeling. And it's also a little confronting, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, hence braving intimacy. Like that's it's just being like, yeah, I feel vulnerable there. And like how do I even flex those muscles? Even if I'm teaching or supporting, facilitating a roundtable, like I've I've got this work to do too. I'm like right there alongside you all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super, it's alive for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So appreciated you being there too. Like
Mm-hmm.
just felt it's remarkable the comfort that just like kind of came through. Like my body just went into immediate comfort seeing your face and you're like, yay, you're like a besties on the call. Like I felt, the scaffolding of people who care about you, like supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. I was it was a gift to be there.
Mhm.
It was special to be there, and I felt like everyone, to the best of their ability, really dove in and was vulnerable, and that's hard to do in a group of, I want to say, strangers. Not everyone was a stranger to me, but certainly,
It was a first time constellation of that group of people, and
yes,
we went deep. Like,
really quickly. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do, and that's why I love that Anais Nin quote about I must be a mermaid, because I fear the shallow waters. Like I really enjoy getting to the heart of stuff.
Yeah.
So to be a part of just holding that is amazing.
Mm,
It's an amazing feeling to be like we all get to geek out together on something that lights us up, or like all of us are equally feeling vulnerable about.
right. Right. And it was really lovely to have a male present.
Thank you. Yes, I said as much to him. Yeah, yeah, showing up.
I mean, good on him. Talk about brave
Mhm.
with 8 other women. I think that's a big deal.
Yeah,
Yeah, a really big deal.
and showing up and still using your voice and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
showing yourself and using your voice. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And being part of like the sharing and teaching, right? Because what I found so alchemical about the whole process was like everyone was bringing something and it changed nothing into something, right?
Right.
Just I felt close to everybody.
Yeah.
And it breaks the myth that like you have to be best friends with someone 25 years to get that feeling. I think that feeling is coming from going to the depths together, being
Yeah.
vulnerable together,
Yeah. For
right?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So I wanted to ask you, my friend, I
Mm.
know, were you gone from Friday to Monday?
We
Friday to Sunday?
left. It was a very quick last minute, like let's just go see some of the autumn. I mean, I
Mm,
think we decided Thursday, right? We're like, let's see if we can find some place, just get some splash of autumn and enjoy ourselves. So we went to Vermont, and he had a workshop on Sunday in Massachusetts. So it was like where we decided to go made sense for what he needed to do for a few hours on Sunday. And it was like everything was near peak in some places. Yeah. Some places, farther north and higher altitude, the trees were bare already because of
Wow.
how cold and windy and whatever the components are. But some places were like our photos to some degree, minus the snow, right? Like bright
Mm.
orange, luscious like yellows, like fluttering in the breeze. So a lot of nature, a little whirlwind. It was like a 36-hour trip, right? And then we had full weeks to start. So it's like, I don't know, come home at 11:30 p.m., start Monday morning, kind of. It wasn't
Oof.
what we had planned, but we had
Right.
traffic. We had
Yeah.
traffic, but no regrets because it was, you know, I get so precious about autumn in a way because it's really short. And coming from the West Coast, thinking about the fall, I kind of assumed it was a whole season. And in many ways it is, right?
Yeah.
But the flower, the leaves and the colors and the change is short.
Yeah.
And so I'm like a little kid that's like, oh gosh, we gotta go see that. Like I
Yeah.
cherish it.
Yeah.
Like I really cherish the autumn colors. So
Yeah.
um, that's what we did. Yeah.
Nice.
It was nice to just like set aside time, both as it relates to set aside time for each other,
Uh-huh.
but set aside time as a thing that we needed to be bothered with. Like,
Uh-huh.
right? That felt really cool. Like it makes me think of your retreats with
Mm.
Janice, where it's like
Uh-huh.
we're letting go of time and
Yeah.
email and all the things. Uh, there's really high value in it for me, in my
Uh-huh.
experience.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unplugging,
Unplugging. Yeah.
right? Do you want to share anything about sort of the ways that you two do that, or because it's like such a great idea for friends to do?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think back to the beginning, the history of it, because that's kind of important. I One of us mentioned the four agreements in a conversation during one of our witness meditation hour and a halfs, and so I've had the book for many years. I've read it a couple times, and she did not have a copy, or she couldn't find her copy. So I ordered one for her and I sent it to her. I was like, this would just be a nice gift to have. So I did that for her. And she was so touched, which was lovely, but I was like, it's just a book. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's a great book. So we started our first, I'm going to say this is our sixth. This was our sixth, fifth or sixth. Anyway, so our agreement was we first started with a 3 or 4 day personal retreat where we were reading. Our focus was the four agreements, and we would spend those 4 days reading and really delving into the meat of the book and talking about each of the agreements. And it was great because the places that we went, it was just lovely to set aside time to do that. And so I think it was like probably a month out before we scheduled our first one, because we really wanted to be intentional about it, and we're like, okay, so these are the dates we're going to do it, and then closer to the dates, we came up with the time, the hour, and it was like a 2-hour window every day, and so and that was our focus, and we both came prepared, read the material, ready to have the conversation. And then from there, I think after the first one, we gave ourselves maybe a 2-month break. And we just realized that we wanted more. So we are now every month, we're doing this every month, where we are meeting and talking about, and so far we've been focusing on Don Miguel's work, which is, it's so incredible. I can't even, I just, he writes in such a way that it makes, and the examples that he uses in his writing um, are so profound and easy to understand.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really lovely. And so our latest, so anyway, we did a couple retreats where we kind of went back and refocused on or talked about our struggles, where because our intention is to do our best to live the four agreements as best as we can. And the fourth agreement is to always try to do your best, right? The irony of that is really lovely. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, so the fifth agreement, which is the one we just focused on, it has I think it has like 4 different parts to it. And we got through the first 2 parts. And then in a month, probably now 3 weeks, we'll focus on the other 2. Um, yeah, and I want to say it has really, it's, I want to say it's solidified our relationship, but I already felt like our relationship was pretty solid. Um, but it certainly has allowed each of us to see and to know and to witness each other at an even deeper level in a different way. And and the and the only agenda, if you will, is an open discussion,
Mm.
is to talk about, and we, the places we go is very vast, which is really lovely. So she's heard and learned about experiences in my life that I may or may not have shared with anyone else, and same way with, same way with her. And so yeah, I would suggest this for anyone else. I mean, we just sort of came up with it because we were like, I wanted to do this as a book study. Like I really wanted to delve into his words and his work, and wanted to do it with someone who would be as excited and as passionate and as committed to it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And the book is only like this thick. It's a really skinny, it's a
Yeah.
tiny little book.
Well, thanks to your inspiration, I reread it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I
Mm,
was like, you know, this solves a lot of things.
right?
I'm just being very practical, particularly as a coach. And it's like, if you do one of these, like things will be better. And if you eventually work your way up to trying, aspiring to do all 4, this solves a lot, you know, a lot of what ends up being the narrative in people's minds
Yeah.
and what they feel hurt about and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're not easy, but they really make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask about in the container of, here's the book we're reading, it's open discussion, it's 2 hours a day, something like that. Do you do anything different to prepare for that time? And then what else do you do on those days? Do you like go back to normal life, or do you stay a little bit more in that like reflective state?
Um, okay, so your first question is, what do I do to prepare?
If anything.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so I would say 90 minutes prior to the time. So I really have to, on the 2 or 3 days or 4 days when we are planning the retreat, I look at my days, the days that we're doing it, and I have to kind of map out the hours, because about an hour and a half prior to meeting, I reread the material we're going to be discussing because I want it to be fresh. And I have I don't have my book here. Anyway, I have so many little, I have a highlighter, I have a pen, and I have these little Post-its. I have so many pages that I'm like, oh, OMG, like, oh my God, we have to talk about, like, just things like that. And I get excited again. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to talk about this. So that comes up, like the excitement comes up to have a discussion with someone, like I said before, who's as excited as I am about it. And also, um, I would say about 15 minutes before the hour that we start, whenever that is, um, I do a I go into a really deep kind of meditation where I want to feel really grounded and feel into my heart, um, and not necessarily, you know, vibrating higher. I really want to feel grounded and deep within myself, because this other stuff happens naturally. It just does, like the high. It's I mean we yeah, it's kind of incredible. So that's what I do. Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry. I was saying I love that you were naming that because I feel like I can be very airy and visionary and future gazing and horizon gazing and have this kind of up here
Hmm.
energy. Um, and I find nature grounds me, right?
Hmm.
Or yoga grounds me. And there's this some people, I think like Richard's similar in that I should say he's the opposite in that he is super rooted and grounded, right? He's got that like I'm here in my body kind of as a Tai Chi player and just by his nature, I think somewhat. And when we did salsa dancing, right? He had like the hips and being grounded, and our teacher was like, "Oh, look at your man, he's so suavecito." Like he's got it. He knows how to be earth bound.
Hmm.
That's also needs hips and being earthbound. Most of my training is like I took ballet for a few years, ice skating, so everything's like up, right? Like
Yeah,
so on
yeah,
on the salsa turns where you're really wanting to be like hips and low and still
yeah,
doing these turns, I kind of like almost pirouette up. And it's a funny thing to be like, that's easy. Popping up there is easy for us. Just appreciate you naming that. Because for others who are the same, there might be more grounding work
yeah, yeah.
to
Um,
balance.
yeah, and if I make, I feel like I'm talking a lot. Okay, so I wanted this. I'm so glad that you brought up the grounding, because um, Lindsay and we did an exchange. What's today? Wednesday, Tuesday?
I think it's Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, but did we do? I think she and I met on Monday or Tuesday. Monday. Anyway, Monday, and she talked about the Scorpio. We're in the Scorpio season, right? And which is really exciting. And she said to me, she's like, you know how she's like, how you're up here a lot. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, it's going to take you a lot more effort and energy, but it's important right now at this time to go deep, to
Mm.
really ground, to sit your, like literally sit your sits bones on the ground so you can feel yourself settled. And I was like, wow. And she's like, yeah, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take a lot more awareness,
Mhm.
but it's going to be really important for you to do that. I'm like, okay, 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 all right.
I
So
that's
I feel like that is my, I feel like right now, like if when I think about things that I want to do in the next month to bring, to bring forth more of myself, that's one of the practices
Mhm.
that I want to do, that I'm going to need to do.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm with you on the grounding. This morning, as I said, I woke up pretty overwhelmed and I think it went frenetic, kind of like upper chest, anxious place. I had my normal cry if my number goes up beyond the 7. Tears pop out of my eyes. It's just my wiring, but it also soothes me. Like it's
Mhm,
very self-soothing to have that little cry for like 10 seconds.
mhm.
And my system resets and I'm resourceful again. And my little mind was like, there's yoga. You'd actually benefit if you do some yoga. You'll get grounded. And there's the overwhelmed part. It's like, that's an hour out of the day. I like need almost every minute right now. Right. And I went with doing the yoga because I was like, first off, like, I feel touched in the head. Nothing's going to go right today if I just go to work. Right. An intervention felt appropriate. And so I did the hour of yoga just to get my breath back. I don't want to say just to get my breath back, to feel supported by the earth, to feel held, to get my nervous system to a place that could then go do the things I was overwhelmed about.
Yeah.
Right. And that was a challenging call. Like that, I just want people to know it's not always like, cool, I know exactly what to do. It's like, fuck, I have so much work to do, but I'm going to be so stressed out all day if I'm operating from this state.
Mhm.
So, do I risk an hour of my time? But that provides the rest of the day with function, Felt like a healthy impulse. And that would have been really hard for me in the past
Mhm,
to
mhm,
do.
mhm.
And just kind of noticing a growth edge there, like, oh, in the past, I would have pushed through instead of I'm taking care of myself.
Yes. Yeah.
And I want that to feel empowering for people. I feel like sometimes we feel like we've dropped balls, but what did we prioritize? Oh, we prioritized our health for ourselves, right? So like that feels like a win, even if balls were dropped. That
Mhm,
that we cared for ourselves.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and so I want to speak to, yeah, the humans who are watching and the women, the people who identify as women. If you are one of those people, one of those people who who don't make themselves a priority and maybe are number 5 on your list.
Mhm.
Um, and if you're one of those people who needs permission or is waiting for permission to be granted from someone else, I'm giving you permission to make yourself a priority, to do that for yourself, to practice self-care. And self-care doesn't have to be woo-woo, it doesn't have to be a massage. It can be something as simple as, all right, I'm not gonna take that call. That person will understand. I'm gonna explain that I need a little bit more time. We will catch up in a few hours, just like Foresta did with me today, and that totally worked. And so, as the person who might have to be asked, is this okay? It will be okay, but you have to bring that forth. Have the courage and have the trust. Know that you have your own back, and know that the other person also has their own back, and that the respect and the trust is there in the relationship, that it can hold that.
Mhm.
Because when we don't take care of ourselves, what else is there? Like if we can't take care of ourselves, how can we take care of anyone else?
Yeah.
How can we do anything else if we don't take care of ourselves? If we're running on fumes, if we're pushing through? Yeah. Like Fidesta said, it would have really kind of messed up her whole day. It would have really gone awry had she not taken the hour, which was a hard call for her, to
Yeah.
do the yoga this morning, to
Mhm.
take a moment, to take an hour for herself, for her body, for her well being. People, that is important. We all
Mhm.
need to do it. And the reason I say women is because typically women have a harder time doing this than men do. Men don't apologize. Men don't ask for they're not looking for someone to excuse them. They just go ahead and they do it. Most, I would say not all men, but most men are like, yeah, I'm going to go and do this. Don't apologize, don't explain. So I want to encourage women and empower women to do that too, because we are allowed to do that.
Yeah, really appreciating you there, especially because it's in service to whatever else you do want out of your day or out of your connection with people or out of your work. Like, it's in direct relation to it. So taking the time, it was to recalibrate. It's like to work with like a crooked system all day, or to take that, take that, it's a risk, right? But take that time and go, wow, okay, I can now think straight. And all this stuff seems doable. Still daunting, but doable. Or just the creative solutions that come out of that, right? Because I was like, oh, well, maybe I push this off till tomorrow. And maybe, whatever I figured that gave me some space.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's a middle way, I'm gonna say, also in accepting ourselves. Like, I had two shitty choices. One was push through even though I'm exhausted, which I did really well for decades. And there's disappoint people if I don't push through. Two shitty choices in my book, right? Like, it's a real pickle. Which one of these crappy choices do I pick?
Right.
And to get to this third option, which is like, I advocate for what I need and hopefully set a kind enough boundary that someone would want that for me. Right? Like, it benefits us if I go do that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's an interesting place to be like, can we advocate for ourselves and stay in connection?
Right. Yeah.
So thank you for letting me practice that today in a very sweet and gentle way.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You not
And
only said like, sure, no problem, but you were also like, and thank you for modeling this. Like,
yeah.
it's like, damn, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, when you were talking about the two crappy choices, right? And then you're like, and the third choice is, but also like, is it more important for us, or what do we feel is worse? To disappoint other people or to disappoint ourselves? And why, I'm going to say as women, like, why is it okay for us to be like, it's all right if I disappoint myself?
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from, that narrative that we've been taught and told, and now it's this running, it's this tape that's on loop, that we're like, no, we're not worthy. I'm not worthy of this. It's okay, I can disappoint myself, but I can't disappoint them, or I can't
Right.
disappoint that person. Ah,
Yeah. And it's built in, right? It's like
it
sense of belonging is gonna, on a primal level, be more important than expression. It'd be nice
right.
to have both. I mean,
Yeah,
that as a relationship educator, that's what I'm trying to teach, is you get to be your full self and you get to have connection,
right.
right? Most of us learned how to not be ourselves to get connection, including people who don't want to rock the boat like that, right?
Right.
It's safer on some level,
Right.
right? Yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's an interesting conundrum, isn't it?
It really is. I get why people struggle with it. Totally understandable.
So do I. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I
Look what you
know.
did. There isn't a week that goes by and I'm like,
I know.
how are we at an hour? So funny. Oh my
Want to do
God.
the end cards?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
one sec.
Okay. So as I'm waiting for Fenesta to come back, I wanted people to notice my background. And what I wanted to say about it is, it looks like, and I believe it could be the Wissahickon Park here in Philadelphia, which is only, I know, which is maybe a mile from me. And the Wissahickon Park it's huge. I don't know I don't know how big it is, but that fence looks very much, and the pathway and looks very much like the Wissahickon. So I'm telling myself that it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere you can actually get to.
Oh yeah, and
It's
there
a
are like,
mile.
there are many, many, many entrances to it, and yeah, it's lovely. It's so easy to get to. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And this time of year, it's stunning. Yeah.
What are the odds? Because I feel like I might have taken the one behind me, and I'm like, I don't know which park of ours it is, but I love the idea that like we both wanted close to home
Mm,
autumn vibes. It's sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You ready?
Ready.
Can I do this with my background? Yeah.
Okay.
This one? Or this one?
No, that one. Yep.
Okay. I don't know. We might have done this one, but
Okay.
let me know. It's sweet. What about me makes you feel like home?
I don't think we've done that one.
Okay.
What about you makes me feel like home?
What about me makes you feel like home? Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Right? Okay. First of all, I would say the first word that comes up is your warmth.
Mhm.
And I love that a lot of the times that I see you on screen, you're holding a mug. So the visual,
Yeah.
I imagine whatever's in the mug is nice and warm or hot, right? And so there's something very, yeah, there's something, I resonate with that. I love that. So warmth, just energetically, but also the mug representing warmth. Um, your consistency in showing up,
Mm.
that is important to me. Um, and when I think of home, I feel, um, for me, home means it's a place that I belong. And I feel like when I'm with you, I belong here in this friendship, in this relationship. And home, when I think about home, I also think that, for me, it's a place of feeling I'm worthy of being. And I feel that I'm worthy of being in our relationship.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I'm so touched.
Mm,
Feels makes my heart glad that that's
mm.
something we share and that's something you're receiving here. Feels really good to me. Mhm.
So, so the question
It's
is,
said a little,
what
it's
about what about me makes you feel
like home.
like you're like home?
Hmm. The first thing that came to mind when I read the question was how accepted I feel. It's just sort of the like, I really can bring all of me here. All of me is welcome here. Sensitivity and the overwhelm and the celebration and the, wacky ideas, like all of it can be welcome here, which for me comes to being emotionally safe.
Mm.
Right? I can totally relax and be the goofball, geeky, human spirit that I am. And yeah, with that is like a like a relief. I feel my shoulders drop when I see you,
Oh,
just this soothed, comforted, safe place to land, right? Like soft place to land, like all of that feels really much like a big sister, like just that feeling of, oh, like she's got me. And like the love that you radiate through that acceptance is of the highest order to me. It's like whatever's up, okay, cool, like here, you know. Yeah, that speaks to me of like the enormous capacity you have to hold
oh,
emotions and spirits, the journey, um, and our human fragility in the midst of that. Like, enormous capacity. So that has me feeling trust towards you.
oh.
You can handle. Um, yeah, and it leads all down to like not feeling like I'm too much. Yeah. It gets super reparative and healing, to collect evidence that I'm just fine as I am. Too much was a long, chronic message.
Oh.
And like the people like you that it's like too much compared to what? Like you're you. And that's just a really cool myth to shatter. Safe, safe, soft place to land. I wasn't wrong when I saw you and like was like, I wish you had a kangaroo pouch. I just want to hang out over here. That's how you feel. It's like,
Oh,
all right, where are we going? Like, it just totally feels right.
oh,
Or those little motorcycles with the sidecar, just felt
oh.
that connection. Doesn't happen often, like from the start. It really does. Like, how often does that happen? You're like, this person's in my soul pot. Luckily, it happens enough times that I have, few of you in that realm. But yeah, so
Oh.
that feels like home to me.
Thank you, my friend. That's so sweet. My heart feels really full. Yeah, I'm feeling some very tender emotion come up, and I'm, yeah, really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who showed up, who watches, who shares and comments. We'd love to hear from you. So please feel free to bring out any questions or observations. Yeah. Okay, my friend. Thank you.